What's your lemonade stand story?
And he was like, YouTube's going to be the next big thing, Devin. Like, you need to get on that. You need to get on it early. And I'm like,
And all of us, we all go through our own trials, our own level of stuff.
Sure hope this works out. Otherwise, this will be a huge waste of time.
I mean, what else is it all about other than just taking risks and continuing to try and grow and hopefully get better and better at making things?
Most of the billion-dollar brands you've seen were started by people that were just solving a problem for themselves.
We're telling lemonade stand stories from some of the world's top creators, makers, and go-getters.
We're rolling right now.
Hey, roll.
We're having fun. We're rolling.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this podcast today is sponsored by Yalla, a task management and team collaboration software that we use at Lemonade Stand. We use Yalla to keep all of our team members organized, wherever they are. In fact, we used it to plan and organize this podcast. Visit yalla.team, that's YALLA.team, and try it for free. We also have a special offer for all listeners of this podcast. Use promo code LEMONADE and get a lifetime 25% off if you upgrade. What's going on, guys? This is Chen Prabhakar with the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast, and I'm here having a grand old time with Curtis Morley. Already, he is the author of The Entrepreneur's Paradox, as if you can see right here. If this book is even being right here, where is it at? Where's it at? All I know is he's author of this book, but it's great because we were just making mention that you're from Farron, Utah, and I've never known of a town in Utah that rhymes with my name. So that's a very, very exciting thing.
Sharon Farron?
Yeah, I have got to make a stop at Farron very soon. No, it's been really cool because we were just talking about some of the different things that you do in entrepreneurship, like leading people up summits and whatnot. And I'm like, wait, what? Is this a thing? Is this real life, first off? And we were also making mention of our mutual friend, Josh Covey, and how you worked with Franklin Covey, and now you created this book. And I'm actually super stoked to dive into this with you, to tell you the truth, because I myself am a bit of an entrepreneur working in film, but also helping start some businesses of my own. And I know, like, I've had my own pitfalls on my own journey to creating whatever I'm creating. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on board and chatting with me today.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and I'm so impressed with how everything's running, and Branson behind the camera. Like, this is just incredible.
I'll tell you what, he is a diamond in the rough. He's the kind of guy that we would send down into the Cave of Wonders because he is my Aladdin. You know, it's quite great. No, I appreciate you being here. And well, first, before we dive into this, I want to talk a little bit about just entrepreneurship in general, because I feel like in order for you to write a book about the entrepreneur's paradox, you yourself should have been an entrepreneur and have had your own set of paradoxes that you've experienced in your own life, right?
Yep.
So
that's exactly it.
That's the thing, right? I mean,
exactly
now you can write something that you're aware of. But what was your journey into being an entrepreneur like? Like, as a kid, did you do any sort of lemonade stand businesses or anything like that? Or
so many lemonade stands.
You did?
And and so growing up in the little town of Farron, when I moved in high school and up here to more metropolitan area of Orem, Utah, not that it's huge, but Orem High School had a larger population than the town of Farron.
That's incredible. That is just incredible.
The student body was larger than my whole town.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, I'll never forget the day. Do you remember Saturday morning cartoons?
Do I remember? Of course I remember.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
yes.
I love them. What was your favorites?
Oh, it was always Super Friends. You got Scooby-Doo. Casper when I was little, because there wasn't much else besides Casper.
Sure, yeah.
But,
Casper's great.
But I had this great big bowl of peanut butter Captain Crunch. I'm 11 years old.
Oh my gosh,
in the little town of Farron. and watching.
Those are the balls, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Of
the
course.
ones that don't quite cut your mouth as bad as the original Captain Crunch.
Yeah, there were many battle wounds in our mouths, but we kept eating those Captain Crunch, right?
Why did we do that? But I had this great big bowl of peanut butter Captain Crunch, and I'm just chomping, watching cartoon after cartoon. And it ended, and after cartoons, the CBS Saturday morning special would come on.
Okay.
And typically I would go and turn off the TV, but this particular morning I still had some peanut butter Captain Crunch left, so I'm just watching. Yeah. And they had this special about this kid in California who started the very first snow shack.
Oh, wow.
And this is in the 80s. Yeah. And when money was actually worth something.
Yeah, sure.
Inflation wasn't out.
It wasn't
off
crazy.
The charts.
Yeah.
And they talked about 15 years old, he's worth $500,000, $500,000 in the 80s. And my mind was just like, what?
Yeah.
He's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
How is this even possible?
Yeah.
And they kept using this word over and over, and I had no idea what this word meant. And I heard it and I'm like, what is that word? And they just use it again and again and again. And the show ended and I ran to my mom. I'm like, Mom, what does this word mean? She's like, what? What's an entrepreneur? Yeah. And she goes, well, your dad is. And my mind just shattered. Yeah. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
All this time. Dad's an entrepreneur. This is impossible. There's no way. And my dad owned the grocery store in the little town of Farron, the singular, grocery store.
That's amazing.
And I was floored.
Yeah.
And ever since I was a little kid, I was at 9 years old, I was selling greeting cards door to door. I was knocking doors and, hi, do you need, Christmas cards? I have Halloween cards.
Yeah. I got them all. Yeah. What do you need? Yeah.
Yeah. And the lemonade stands and my little brother loved to do plays and stuff. So I would have him organize all the kids from the neighborhood. They'd create a play. And then I would be the manager and charge all the parents a quarter to come see it and then pay all the actors a nickel.
You already knew. You knew. That was amazing.
And so, ever since I was a little kid, but specifically that morning, I said, when my mind just fractured into a million pieces, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that is awesome. And so did a lot of your business ideas start off in Farron and then you kind of brought it out here, or was it more like, because you know what I mean, you said you grew up there for like a long while. Did you experiment and test out different ideas out there?
Yeah, most of them were literally lemonade stand type ideas.
I love it.
Most of them, were just, what can I sell? What can I produce? All of that. And so, we did a lot of lemonade stands,
That's so
all
awesome,
of that fun stuff. But it wasn't till college really that I really got into it.
So what was your first venture in business in college?
Yeah, so it was funny because my father-in-law at the time, I went to him. I was working at Ancestry.
Okay, yeah.
And at Ancestry.com, there was this brand new technology. This is back in the beginning of the internet, and there's new technology called Flash.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing. So I started learning Flash and I started getting these side gigs. And all of a sudden, my side hustle was making more money than my main job.
Wow!
And I'm like, whoa! So I go to my my father-in-law, and he was a venture capitalist and did investments and things. I said, I think I want to start my own business. And he had the very parently type talk and said, well, before you do that, why don't you get a little nest egg, before you dive off the cliff, make sure you tie a rope around yourself so you don't splat at the bottom.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a great idea. Yeah. So I made this plan, the 6 to 9 month plan of how much money I'm going to save and then I'm going to quit and all this stuff. And the very next week, they laid off our entire department.
No way.
And so off the cliff I went. I was like, woohoo, here we go. I'm going.
I didn't realize this rope was already tied on, but I'm going,
And I just dove off. And And I'm really glad I did. I'm
Yeah.
really glad I did, because that gave me the momentum. And it was hilarious because in the exit interview, you know, like our whole department, they were doing all the funding stuff and you know, and they're just clearing out entire departments. And so the CTO, he's giving me the exit interview, and he was actually a friend of mine, lived in my neighborhood.
Oh, man.
And he was all broken up. He's like, I'm so sorry. And, you know, he was almost in tears, and like, and I'm like, no, this is great. Yeah. I'm like, this is awesome. He's like looking at me like, wait, everyone else leaves my office with wet cheeks. And and you're excited about this? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was super fun. So
it's so fun. Like, you just like kind of jumped in and just did your thing then? Yeah.
And it was a really neat experience, because I started my business like most entrepreneurs start their business, which is actually what creates the entrepreneur's paradox. Okay. So most entrepreneurs, they start their businesses because they're really good at something. They, for example, Branson gave me, as I walked into your offices, Branson gave me this pumpkin cream cheese muffin or cupcake, which is heavenly.
It looks heavenly, incredible.
And I already ate a maple bacon, but don't tell MyFitnessPal.
Don't worry, your secret's safe with me and the rest of the internet.
But you know, you've got the cupcake baker that makes the most phenomenal cupcakes in the world, and because of that, people are like, wow, can I have some of your cupcakes? Will you sell me some cupcakes? And they're like, well, yeah. And then more people say, oh, these are incredible. Can you sell me your cupcakes? And it just starts to blossom and grow like that. Yeah. And that's actually what creates the paradox. And in my case, same thing. Okay. I was doing this new interactive media using Flash on the web. Yeah. And creating these interactive websites that had never been seen before. And people are like, man, this is amazing. Can you build one of those for me? And I'm like, well, yeah. And they're over and over again, they're like, you need to start a business. And I'm like, well, of course I do. If I know how to build websites, of course I know how to build a business.
No problem. Same thing. Yeah.
It's not at all the same thing. Building a website. And it's funny because there was an international certification. Tens of thousands of people had taken this test. Yeah. And I ranked number 2 in the world. And I actually don't share this with a lot of people because that was the problem, is because I was expert in what I was doing, just like the expert, you know, cupcake baker. That is the paradox, that what got me into business was the thing that would prevent me from succeeding in business.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's expand on that idea. What do you mean by that? Like, the thing that got you in it is the thing that would prevent you from success?
Yes.
And how does that work?
I know. It's
great. I love it. I want to dive in so badly, you know?
It's the paradox of being the expert. And in my case, because everybody knew me as, oh, you're the guy that creates these phenomenal interactive websites. Then you, Curtis Morley, needs to build my websites. Okay. And the problem is, and when I coach and when I mentor entrepreneurs, the question I always ask them, I say, if you're building the product, who's building the business? Right. Yeah. And that's the paradox, is I had to give up being the best in the world at creating Flash websites and these interactive, amazing things. I had to actually rip that identity out of myself and say, okay, I have to stop being the best in the world at this so that I can be the best in the world at building a business.
You know, it's so interesting. There's a show on HBO called Silicon Valley. I don't know if you've ever heard of that show before. You know,
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a comedy show, and it's actually funny because as an actor, like I was on that show. I was an actor on that show.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
But being on that show, I learned a lot about business, because the whole thing is all about like doing startups and whatnot. And there's a very interesting scene where the main character is talking about like this product that he's created and all that stuff. And he's like, and then the entrepreneur's like, but that's not your business. And he kept on saying, he's like, that is not your business. You're creating a product. And he kept saying like, that is a product, but you've got to figure out like, all the infrastructure around the business, because the business is what houses the product, right?
Yes.
And you could be an expert at a product and not an expert at building a business, because it's completely different things, right?
Yep.
So,
and that's the paradox, is that what got you in the business, making the most amazing pumpkin cream cheese cupcakes, is what you actually have to give up in order to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so someone else has to make it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like you've got a recipe for the cupcake, and that's what makes it so great. And building interactive websites, you've got this program, and you've got a set of instructions that make it so great. And helping entrepreneurs change their thinking from, I'm going to have a recipe for the cupcake, to, I'm going to have a recipe for the business, and taking that same passion, that same desire, those, same hopes and dreams, and shifting them, or taking that same, line of instructions in your code and saying, okay, this is the formula that makes a great website and makes really cool, fun interactivity.
Right.
Change that into, this is the formula for making an amazing business.
So let me ask you this. You identify 16 pitfalls in the startup journey. What are those 16 pitfalls? Like I can't believe that you've identified actually 16 different pitfalls.
Yeah. Well, the way I wish I could say I was scholarly and had this amazing, Harvard education to identify those pitfalls. No, I made all those pitfalls. I made those mistakes. Some of them a couple, 2 or 3 times, just to make sure I got the lesson.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I just want to make sure this is a real pitfall. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I just wanted to,
dive right in that snake pit.
Yep, there it is. Yep, that still hurts.
It still hurts.
Yeah.
And that's where they came from, is the book of life. And it's been really interesting, because as I've coached and mentored entrepreneurs and helped them take their businesses to the next level, doubling, tripling their revenue year over year. It's so interesting, because everybody thinks, well, my business is unique. My business is completely unique. Totally. I make cupcakes better than anyone else. I do that. And so my business is unique. And the truth is, yes, your business is unique. Your business problems are not unique.
Yeah.
As I mentor more and more entrepreneurs, the problems are right in line. The problems match. Doesn't matter if it's a publisher, a cupcake baker, a heated apparel, a global travel company, all of them experience these 16 pitfalls.
That's so amazing and wild, because see, I have a side business right now, or I'm a very small owner of this company. And it's interesting because it's such a unique product, right? We do VR and we create biblical experiences in virtual reality. I'm like, who does that, right? Like, it's it's a really cool thing.
Oh, but I got to check that out.
You have to. You absolutely have to. It's awesome. And we've been doing all kinds of fun stuff with it.
That's awesome.
But I would say that the business side of things is still the tricky thing, because we're like, well, we're creative guys, we're visual effects guys, but like the business side of like, well, we got to, staff our business, and how do you get the sales going, and how do you track those and things like that. I feel like we probably have hit some of those 16 pitfalls, probably over and over and over again. So I think we're probably still there,
Yeah.
So, do you know, can you list off the top of your head, all 16 of them right now?
Not in order, but yes, as a matter of fact, I can.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So, the first one, seeing the swamp and not the mountains. And actually, before you even see the swamp, I use this analogy of wrestling the alligators.
Okay.
And that's what keeps us in the paradox.
Okay.
As long as we're wrestling alligators, we will stay in that paradox.
So what does that mean to wrestle alligators?
So, for example, if you wake up and, if you wake up and you think, okay, I've got to get the flour, the sugar, I've got to get the cream cheese and the pumpkin all ready for this cupcake. And then I make the cupcakes, and then an angry customer comes in and you wrestle that alligator. And then you think, oh, I've got to make payroll. And then you wrestle that alligator. And then you say, oh, I've got to come up with a new recipe. And then you wrestle that alligator.
Okay.
And it's easy to forget that your objective is to drain the swamp when you're eye to eye with the alligator. When the alligator is right here, when that angry customer is like, no, I didn't order pumpkin, I ordered maple bacon cupcakes, then you forget, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be draining the swamp. And if you drain the swamp, the alligators leave. And so understanding how to drain that swamp and creating processes and systems in place so that you don't wrestle alligators anymore. It's done.
The system takes care of it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Then seeing the swamp and not the mountains. One thing I find about entrepreneurs is that entrepreneurs, they wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, I'm so excited, I got to create a new pumpkin cheesecake cupcake, or whatever. And they often have hopes, they often have dreams, but very few have goals. And you think, well, no, I most people have goals. And the reason I say that is because to me, a hope and a dream is like, I want to be the best cupcake baker out there. And it's ambiguous and it's
great, but it's like, there's no like actual actionable steps to get you to that goal or to that dream, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about, so this pitfall 1, seeing the swamp and not the mountains. If you think about what mountains you can climb in the entrepreneurial world, there's actually only 3. There's only 3 mountains you get to climb. Yeah, I know. It's like, this totally distills it down to like, that brings clarity. The first mountain you can climb is a lifestyle business. So, do the local mom and pop thing, which is great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the second mountain is the buyer be bought mountain. So either I'm going to start acquiring companies or I'm going to work for an acquisition myself. And the final mountain is the IPO mountain. And so here in Utah, we have one of the most beautiful mountains in the world, the Mount Timpanogos. That's kind of like your lifestyle business. So you throw a couple peanut butter and jelly in the backpack, you have your water, you hike up, it takes 8 10 12 whatever, depending on how fast you are, but you go up and down in the same day. And you can typically wear shorts, and it's a beautiful hike and all that. That's kind of like the lifestyle business. The buyer be bought mountain is like Kilimanjaro. It requires a guide. The Tanzanian government requires you to have at least one guide and one porter. So like by law, you cannot climb the mountain without a guide. It's a multi-day trip. It's crazy elevation,
How high is it normally?
Top.
Normally, just how high is it? I mean, it could shift. There could be earthquakes. Who knows? Who knows? Right? Yeah. Who knows?
The top of the mountain is 19,341 feet.
Okay, that's a big one.
So just under the cruising altitude of a jet. Like when you take a cross country trip or a transatlantic, you're about 20,000 feet. And it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. So it's the tallest mountain that doesn't have a mountain range around it. And and it's hard, and it takes a lot of effort, but the reward is amazing. It's so glorious. And then finally, the IPO, or the initial public offering mountain, is like Everest. You don't go up that mountain without Sherpas and without acclimating zone after zone, and and that one is 30,000 feet. It's just 29,900, I believe.
29,000 something. I remember that.
Oh no, it's 29,029. That's what it is. So it's 29,000 feet. It's insane, but it's doable. But you have to have a guide, and so thinking about that, like going back to your businesses, where is your mountain? And in the book, and you can actually find it on my website as well, I have what's called the success formula. And the success formula is composed of 4 parts. How much, by when, for what, and why. So the how much is a monetary goal. Do I want to make $20 million? Is that revenue? Is that profit? What's my EBITDA? How do I, or what is it my valuation? Do I want to have a company that's valued at $20 million? And so that's the how much.
Okay.
And this is where people are like, oh yeah, that does make sense. I do need to create a goal instead of just, I want to be the best.
Yeah.
Because what does that even look like? Exactly. But if you have a very specific number, and then on top of that, you say, okay, by when? And this is where things get real. This is where the rubber hits the road. If you actually put a date on the calendar. So I want to hit 20 million in revenue by October of, not just October, but October 15th of, 2026.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Like
5 years from now.
5 years from now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so October 15th, and that's critical. It's really critical that it's not just October or it's not just 2026. It's October 15th. As soon as you do that.
Well, because that's my mom's birthday. That's why it was so critical.
Yes.
We have to have that kind of money. Yes. By then. Yes. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
But two things happen when you put that date on that dollar value. Is number one is the universe conspires to be on your side. And it says, hey, thanks for letting me know where you're going. Yeah. Let me help clear the path.
Yeah.
Let me help guide you along the path. The other thing that happens is your brain is the most powerful computer in the world. It is created for problem solving, and you just gave it a problem.
Okay.
You just gave it an amazing problem, and it became real as soon as that date got put on that number. So how much, by when, and then for what? What is your objective? If you're a lifestyle company, your objective might be make enough money to buy a cabin up at Sundance, or a houseboat in Lake Val, or whatever it is. If you're buy or be bought, that's pretty easy. Your for what, your event that's going to happen is an acquisition.
Right.
Yeah. And IPO is going public. And so the for what is an event that happens. And then the and why. The and why is
the intrinsic stuff, right?
Is what's in here.
Yeah.
And most of the time when I walk people through this formula, they the and why, they're thinking, well, maybe I could start a orphanage in Mexico, or there's some philanthropic thing, which is awesome, which is fantastic, but it has to be authentic. It can't be just because I'm doing this exercise. Your and why might be because I'm worried about finances and I want to stop the anxiety. I want to be able just to be financially independent so I don't have to worry about that. Or I want to make sure my kids go to college. Or, your and why can be anything, but
it's just got to be authentic though.
Yes, it has to be here. It has to be in your heart.
I love that.
And when you outline that, then you have a goal. Then you know which mountain you're going to climb. And all of a sudden, it's no longer flip-flops and peanut butter and jelly. Now it's, I've got to climb Kilimanjaro, which has 5 climate zones.
Right. Okay.
5 climate zones. You start in shorts, you end at -4 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
It's
wild.
Yeah. There's monkeys and wild animals running around the jungle at the bottom, and at the top, it's an Arctic tundra.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's a different, you have different gear, you have different methods, and all of a sudden your brain clicks in and goes, that's where I'm going. Now I know what mountain I'm going to climb and when I'm going to hit the summit.
So let me ask you this, because we you're talking about Kilimanjaro quite a bit. You say you started writing this book and then you actually summited Kilimanjaro, and then you came back and you're like, yeah, I need to rewrite this whole book. So what happened? What was that journey like, and what were you initially thinking, and then why did that shift happen after you became, because you said after you climbed down, you came back down, you were a changed man.
Yeah. They have a saying, and I don't know the African version of the saying, but the translation is, you can't go up without coming down changed. And every single person on our expedition came down a different person. It was amazing. Yeah. So to put in perspective, you're talking 19,341 feet, and round trip, it's 40 miles.
Okay.
And base camp, that final day, base camp is at 15,500.
Wow.
So that's 4,000 feet above temp. That's where we're starting our climb.
That's so wild.
And the air is so thin. The air is just so thin. And I've done some pretty physical things. I qualified for the Boston Marathon. I've done Ironman in Kona. All of these different things, and there is nothing I have in my life that I can say climbing Kilimanjaro is like. There is no like. It's
its own unique beast.
It is so much more intense, and it takes you down to, it strips away everything and leaves you with nothing but soul.
Okay.
And you have to dig so deep. I had to dig so deep.
Did you feel like there were many times when you're like, yep, I think I'm done?
Well, on that final day, so it was February 9th, 2019. Okay. So 2 weeks before COVID hit the world. Yeah. We had to start at 1 a.m. in the dark, because from base camp to the top is just over 2 miles, but it's 4,000 feet.
Oh my gosh.
In 2 miles.
Oh my gosh.
The elevation gain is crazy. And as we were approaching the mountain from, miles and miles away, we could see these big switchbacks going up to the first summit. There's actually 3 summits. So the mountain did actually grow.
Yeah. See, I wasn't lying.
You were so on.
I was just it was like a premonition of like what's to come, So
and you could see these switchbacks all the way to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
But what we didn't know is there were switchbacks in the switchbacks. I'm not kidding. These great big switchbacks.
It's like, we talked about Inception, putting ideas in people's heads and stuff like that. So this is switchbackception.
There we go.
That's what this is. There's a switchback within a switchback.
It's a switchback within a switchback.
Yeah.
And so 1 a.m. is when we started, because we had to make it up 2 miles and down 2 miles before it got dark the next day.
Oh my gosh.
4 miles, and we had 24 hours to do it in. And so we start going. And to get to your question of, did you ever think of, holy cow, this is too much?
Yeah.
We were going, and it's literally, you have your trekking poles, and it's plant, step, breathe. Plant, step, breathe.
No way.
Plant, step, breathe. And every single step was like running a 5K.
My gosh.
It's so intense. And the typical trek is 7 to 10 days. We did it in 5, which we learned why people do it in 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
Like, next time.
Yeah.
And so we get about a mile up. So we're just under a mile from the top. And consider, we flew to Africa. We hiked, we're 19 and a half miles at this point. Yeah. We're at about 18,000 feet. And we're 1 mile from the top, and we get to this place. I call it the ice cave. It probably doesn't have a name, but there's icicles hanging from the, from the roof of the cave. And it's just this dent in the rock. And our main guide, Simon, he says, "Do not sit down." Yeah. He's like, "You do not get up."
Oh, no way.
And so immediately half of our group sat down. And there's like, and it was so crazy, because at that point we had all gone on this amazing journey. We were 1 mile from the top, all the way on the other side of the world and the other side of the different hemisphere. And I heard things like, what was I thinking? I can't do this. What was I thinking? I'm not made for this. I'm not a mountain climber.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back. And all of this, it was so hard. There were so many people that were just saying, I'm going to go back. And the rest of us said, no, there is no chance you are going back.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to lift their spirits and literally lift them physically so that we can continue up the mountain. And it's so much like entrepreneurship. It's so interesting. You look at the statistics. The government statistics say that between 20 and 30% of businesses will fail in the first year.
Yeah.
And 50% will fail within 5 years. So you've got a 50% chance, right?
Yeah.
I think they're wrong. I know that I know the numbers play out.
Yeah.
I know that's what the data says,
Yeah.
but I think they're wrong. I don't believe that businesses fail. I believe entrepreneurs quit. And oftentimes they're 1 mile from the summit.
Wow.
Oftentimes they're right at that breaking point where it's so hard, but if they keep going, they're going to make it.
They're going to make it.
And it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
It is. But that's where the transformation happens. And we got everybody to the first summit, most to the second, and all but 3 to the third.
Wow.
And so it was an incredible experience, but it was absolutely transformational.
Man, I mean, I'm sure like just being up on top of that mountain and like, I don't know, taking pictures or whatever you would do up there. But it's got to have just been like, like life altering, I would think, to go on this epic journey and to make it there and to come back. I mean, I've never done anything that extreme, but I've traveled to New Zealand and done all kinds of different things like that. And when you're able to like go on a journey and you come back after like this epic journey, it's such an interesting feeling because you are changed. You've completely changed. And what was that change like for you that made you be like, you know what? It's time to rewrite that entire book. You know, so it must have been an interesting experience, right?
Yeah, just after we left the ice cave, we were hiking, and I don't know if you know this phenomenon, but the coldest and darkest part of the day is right before the sun rises.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the darkest and coldest part of the day is right before the sun comes up. And we were at such elevation, we could actually see the curvature of the earth. Instead of the horizon being flat, like you see it, you go to the beach and you got this flat horizon. No, we could actually see the globe. We could see the big marble in space oh
my word. Well, now I have got to throw my flat earth theory away because you proved me wrong. No, that's amazing to be up there and to see that whole that perspective like that, right?
Yeah. And it got so cold and it got so dark. It was when we started, it was -4 degrees. So 36 degrees below freezing.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And it was just frigid, and it kept getting darker and colder, and we're literally gasping for breath with every step. And then all of a sudden, I wish I could show you the picture. I've got it on my phone. Maybe I'll pull it out. But all of a sudden, instead of just pitch black, instead of just darkness, and instead of 3 feet in front of us because of our headlamp is all we could see, I looked back and I saw this thin slit that curved and it was still gray. And then I saw a little bit of color. And then all of a sudden, just this little speck of light shot across the horizon and hit our entire group. And all of the darkness and all of the cold just disappeared. And as long as we could see the sun, and know that the sun was there guiding us, that's where our hope came back. That's where the energy came back and our excitement came back. As long as we knew that the sun was with us.
I love that.
Then
my gosh, I love that. That's a beautiful analogy for life, and beautiful analogy for like spiritual beliefs and like and all kinds of stuff, because I think that's the hope, right? You're saying, that's the hope that keeps you going forward. Because I feel like the entrepreneur journey and our journey in life is also, it's all the same, and having that little bit of hope to guide us, because things can get really, really dark.
They can,
Yeah.
And they always get darkest right before the sun rises. Part
of the entrepreneur journey is all about pivoting, right? And also about dealing with lemons and turning them into lemonade. Was there ever a moment in your life where you're like, that was a lemon?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think that stopped.
Okay. All right. It's continuing to go. It's continuing to go. Okay. Is there a particular one that you would love to be like, yeah, that was one that we turned into lemonade?
Yeah. Actually, if I could share a client experience.
Yeah, please.
So one of my clients, she's amazing. Her name's Kylie Chen, and she runs a company called Ecanella Expeditions. And it's a global travel company. She's the one that took me up to Kilimanjaro. Yeah. Along with this group of amazing people. And kind of, that started the thought, or restarted the thought for my book. Now I do the Summit on the Summit, where I take people up mountains and we do business training as we go, life training as we go. Yeah. These crazy experiences. But we were in Africa. We were in Tanzania 2 weeks before COVID hit the world. Half of our group didn't get out of Africa. Oh, wow. Half of us made it home. The other had to stay 3 weeks to get back into the country. And Kylie was one of them. And her business went from this amazing, incredible, blossoming business, multi-million-dollar business, to zero in 1 month. You think about the pandemic, and what industries were hit hardest? Travel, food, these travel was probably the hardest hit. Yeah. And she literally just, all orders stopped, just dead. And she could have said, going back to, do businesses fail or do entrepreneurs quit? She could have said, oh, why is this happening to me? There's nothing I can do. Throwing up my hands. I'm done. And because that's some serious lemon right there. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Going from just tons of orders and tons of business, lots of revenue, to nothing. Literally 1 month went to zero. And she could have said, oh, well, I guess we're done. Shutting the doors. But she didn't. Yeah. She said, did the demand disappear? Did the demand leave? Yeah. Did the demand or the excitement for travel, for adventure, for having these expeditions, did that go away? She's like, well, no, COVID didn't destroy those things. It just moved. So where did it move to? And people could still travel within their own country. We can still travel within the US, but we couldn't travel outside. And so she said, well, let's create those experiences here. So she started a second company called Wander Camp. And it's these glamping experiences near these amazing places in our country.
That's awesome, man. That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's killing it. She's doing so amazing.
That's amazing.
And now that COVID is letting up, now she's got 2 multi-million-dollar businesses.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's incredible.
It really is. It's just so inspiring, because she didn't say, oh, I'm going to quit. Yeah. She wasn't in the ice cave saying, I'm going back down. She said, you know what? There's still that demand. Yeah. I'm just going to find out where it went. Yeah. And I'm going to meet it there.
Oh, I love that. That's a great example. So let me ask you this now. With all of the things that you've learned, all the things that you've written, where is your truest source of joy?
Can I get spiritual?
Please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a spiritual guy, a very spiritual guy. So yeah.
Awesome. Truest source of joy is God in Christ. No question. Yeah. Because this book is about overcoming pitfalls. Life is about overcoming pitfalls. Yeah. And I've made a ton. I've made so many mistakes. And knowing that I have a Father in heaven that loves me, and knowing that I have a Savior, that's where the truest joy comes.
It's interesting. I was always a spiritual person, but I never really accepted there being a God and all that stuff until really high school, I would say, And then once I did, and after high school, I had what you'd call kind of like my born again summer, right? Where I was I learned a lot of things, and I remember forming a partnership or like a relationship with God, and just saying like, hey, if I could, if you could lead me to happiness, I'll follow you. Like, and I realized now, looking back on my life, I just think, all of this stuff, being in the business of acting, which is what I do, and all that stuff, it's all great and everything. But if my one foundation, if my one relationship was ever jeopardized by any of this other stuff, then none of it would ever matter to begin with. But if this is like intact and it's great and solid and pure, then I feel like everything else just is like, hey, whatever happens kind of can do its thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's been really an interesting journey to solidify that even more. So
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, of course, and thank you for sharing your own experience. That's amazing. Now, with that, what would be your greatest source of fear?
I am really glad you brought up fear, because if you look in the book, there's other pitfalls: climbing without a map, pulling a goal out of thin air, not creating a path. But pitfall number 4 and pitfall number 5. Pitfall number 4 is trusting your fears.
Okay.
Instead of doubting your doubts, trusting your fears. That is a huge pitfall. And pitfall number 5 is being frozen by imposter syndrome.
Okay. What does that mean? What does imposter syndrome mean?
Imposter syndrome is, it's actually baked into entrepreneurship. It's a really interesting phenomenon. Okay. Because I would suggest that every really great entrepreneur is also an imposter. And it's okay. Yeah. It's okay that they are. And let me put a little more context around that, because you're probably thinking that sounds really weird.
No, dude. Yeah.
But let's say, for example, going back to this pumpkin cream cheese
beautiful cupcake.
Yeah, beautiful cupcake. It's awesome. It looks great. Really smells good. Yeah. I love pumpkin.
Yeah. I cannot wait for you to eat that. Yeah.
But there's probably no one that has created this cupcake this way. And so entrepreneurs, they put this expectation on themselves, and I did this for sure, that I've got to be the expert. And I identify the different types of imposter syndrome. There's the genius imposter. There's the expert imposter. Yeah. I go through all these different imposter type, including the meta imposter, which you can have multiple. You can be a superhero and the genius and the expert all at one. But the coolest thing about being an entrepreneur is you're doing something that no one has done before. And in your way. And therefore, there is no expert. There is nobody that can be the pinnacle, the expert, because you're doing something new. And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs, that's why it's baked into the process of entrepreneurship. But a lot of entrepreneurs feel this like, oh, I hope nobody finds out that I really have no clue what I'm doing. And oftentimes when they see success, it'll have a counteracting effect on their psyche, because they're like, well, other people deserve this, not me. And in my case, I started my first business when I was still going to college, and I ended up dropping out. Well, it's funny, I dropped out, but then I went back and taught so I could get employees. But I didn't have a college degree until last year. I didn't have a college degree, and I always felt like, oh, well, I hope nobody figures that out, because then they'll think I'm a fake. Then they'll know I really don't know what I'm doing. And that's baked in. That's baked into the process of entrepreneurship, is because you're doing something no one has ever done before, no one can be the expert in it. And so
it's like you're kind of doing it your own unique way. And that is such beautiful advice. I had this experience happen where so there's so many different trains of thoughts as far as acting goes, right? Like this is the method to becoming a good actor. That's the method of becoming a good actor, right? And really the truth is like, hey, find the thing that works best for you. That's what you want to do, right? So every person is different. And I remember this like a beautiful lesson that I experienced where I kept thinking I needed to say it like this. I needed to be like that. Like I needed to say the lines this particular way in this particular style, and that's how it's going to win. And then there was this actor named Bryan Cranston. I don't know if you know him. He's a very famous actor, and he gave this lesson on auditioning and saying like, listen, when you're creating a character and stuff, you're really bringing your voice to it. So how would you do it? You know, like, what is your way? You're not here to be that person. You're here to be you as this character, right? And I don't know why, but hearing him say it, because I really respected him a lot, it struck a massive chord with me. And so my very next audition was, funny enough, for Silicon Valley. And I remember having my own voice for it, right? And it was interesting because the character was written a certain way. And then when I came in and did my audition, I wanted to do it my own way, and I did it. And they loved it so much that they rewrote the character to be more like the way I did it, you know? And it was just like this, like,
that's awesome.
It was like this incredible, like, wow, like, I didn't realize like it was just me. It was my own version of it, but it was authentic and it was real. And so I made that a big lesson because even, I told you I just barely got back from Dallas a couple of days ago. I was asked to be the presenter for these spas. And I remember when they gave me the script, it was like full of technical jargon and everything like that. And I said, you know what, is there a way we can like marry this script into something that would be more authentic to the way I would say it, you know? And they were so respectful, and they said, yeah, let's figure something out. And so we tailored the script to be a little bit different, and it ended up being a lot more natural and a lot more relaxed because it was my version. Now, if you were to do it, you would have probably done a different job, or an other person would have done a different job. And it doesn't mean that one is better than the other.
Yeah, yeah.
So I love that. That's such an awesome idea.
This is so great. That's really beautiful that you took that, and because of that, you saw success. And if I can put a word around all of what you were saying, is the word should. Okay. And this is a word that you won't find a single version of should or shouldn't in my book. It's not in print in my book. My articles I write on Forbes and Fast Company and all that, you won't find the word should. And the reason why is because should is such a damaging word.
It really is.
And it puts all these unrealistic expectations on. And like most of my life, I was shouldn't myself. And
me too.
We've got to stop shouldn't ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it says that there's this expectation that is oftentimes really unrealistic. And it's this fake expectation which fuels fear.
Yeah.
And you ask, what are the biggest fears? I have a whole chapter on fear, and there's actually a formula that you can take one letter and change fear into power. All you have to do is change one letter. And would it be okay if I illustrate that?
Please do. I'm curious.
So oftentimes, we should ourselves or we shouldn't ourselves. Either way, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. And the trouble with that is that abdicates our own responsibility. That means that somebody else, not me, somebody else said, I need to do this. I should do this.
Or you're being powered by a narrative.
Yes. And it's not me. Instead, we can say, I want to, or I choose to, or I desire. Yes. Yeah. And so in that same way, we often use the phrase, what if? Well, what if I can't make payroll? What if I go bankrupt? What if I fall flat on my face? What if my friends laugh at me for this idea that I think is great, but they think is dumb? What if? And can you feel like right now, when I say those words, what does it feel like? Like
it feels like limiting. It feels kind of like you're being held back. I feel
that constricting, closing in feeling. Like what if I can't provide for my family? What if I lose my house? What if? And my favorite Stoic, Greek Stoic Seneca, he said that suffering happens in imagination rather than reality, and it's very true. And so we use this phrase "what if" all the time. And if we take the F off the end, throw the F away,
Mm-hmm.
and we put on an S, and we say, what is? Now listen to how you feel. What is my next step? What is something I can do to rectify this? What is my goal?
Yeah.
What is the thing I need to do right now?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Well, it feels incredibly empowering because now you're like, well, there's opportunities, there's possibilities. Like there is the next thing that we can do, right? We're not being held back.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that.
And so, when I encourage all of my entrepreneurs to take that F, throw the F away, put the S, because one of my good friends, Richard Vass, he coined the phrase. He said that fretting on the future fuels fear. Perplexing on the past produces pain. Only the present provides peace and power. And what is takes us out of the future, all of these negative scenarios of, oh no, the world's ending, the sky's falling, and it brings us to today.
Yeah.
And like on Kilimanjaro, I didn't have to climb the mountain. I didn't have to get to 19,341 feet. I had to take one more step. That's what I had to do.
Yeah, it's so great. I could talk about this for hours, man, because I tell people, like, your experience in life really comes down to your relationship to the moment. Like in this moment, what are you doing? Are you thinking about, are you worrying about the future? Are you fretting over the past, perplexing over the past? When you look at all of the most amazing experiences you've ever had in your life, hiking Kilimanjaro, for instance, every single one of those moments when you learned so much, you grew so much, and you just loved it. If you could put yourself back in that moment, what were you thinking of? You were just there. You weren't really thinking. You were just there.
It was the next step. You were completely absorbed in the here and the now. Yeah.
One of the greatest names of God in the scriptures is I am. You can't think of a more powerful name than I am that I am, right?
Yeah.
And when you think of it like that, I feel like, God has mastered time and space. Like he's beyond all of this stuff, right? So for him, everything's the eternal now, right? Everything is all rooted right here in the eternal now, this eternal present moment. And when you connect with God, it's a present thing.
Yeah.
When you're utilizing the atonement, it's a present thing.
Yes.
And it's always present. When you're feeling the grace of God, when you're feeling peace, those are very present filled things. And so when I think about like that, if I'm always trying to escape the moment, if I'm trying to worrying so much about hypothetical scenarios and escaping this present moment, that's when I feel that sense of constriction, that sense of being disempowered. But when I am rooted back in the present and being like, no, what is the next step? Then it's like, oh, I'm back. I'm back. I'm rooted back. I'm centered.
Yes. You pull your power back inside.
You pull your power back in you.
Yeah. I love that.
So I'm a big believer in bringing your power back to you, because whenever I look at times when I'm unhappy, I'm like, oh, wait. Where's my power? I have to ask myself, where did my power go? Where did I place it? Where did I place it? And usually it's not here with me. So I'm like, oh, I'm powering something outside of me. If I can bring it back in, then everything feels good again and whole, and it's awesome. Yeah. So, well, I have one last question for you, if you're okay with this.
Yeah, you bet.
With all of the things that you've learned, if you can go back to the young Curtis Morley, the one that's barely getting started with entrepreneurship, the one that learned about that CBS special, right? What would you tell that Curtis?
Oh, wow. It's funny because people ask why I wrote the book. It's twofold. One was because I wrote The Entrepreneur's Paradox because I want to help entrepreneurs. I have this audacious goal that I want to help 1 million entrepreneurs find next level success.
I love it.
Yeah. And But I also wrote it for 25-year-old Curtis.
Okay.
I wrote it for that kid that got laid off at Ancestry, jumped off the cliff, and just went for it, because I made those mistakes. I made them so much. And the thing that came to mind was one of the chapters is one of the pitfalls is climbing the mountain alone. Yeah. And I always felt like, traveling alone, Pitfall 7. I always felt like I had to do it myself. I always felt like I couldn't be vulnerable. I couldn't accept that it was okay that I'm an imposter because I have to be. Yeah. There was a lot of ego. There was a lot of pride. And it wasn't pride out of, look how great I am. It's pride of, oh, I hope nobody sees what I am.
Yeah. It's like a reverse pride, right?
Yeah. But I held it inside, and there were so many decisions that I made on my own that, that produced a negative result, that if I would have just reached out to someone. Yeah. And like going back to Kilimanjaro, half of our group wanted to go back. And if the other half hadn't literally grabbed under their arms and lifted them up, they might have. And so one thing I would say is just let it all go. Be vulnerable. Accept, I always was worried about telling people my revenue because it was never big enough. And there was always bigger companies and people doing better than I was. And just accepting the now. Accepting the truth and being vulnerable, and then accepting help from other people, not trying to climb the mountain alone. Yeah. Because you think about, would anyone in their right mind climb Kilimanjaro by themselves? No, that's stupid. But yet in business and oftentimes in life, we
think we have, it's all on our own, like it's all on our shoulders, right?
Yeah, we think I'm going to climb this mountain by myself. I'm going to wear all the hats. I'm going to make all the decisions. I'm going to keep everything private. No, find a mentor, find a coach, find peers that will climb the mountain with you. Find somebody that's already gone up the mountain. And listen to them and be vulnerable and say, you know what? I don't have it figured out. Right. Guess what? You don't have to find out that I'm a fake, because I'm telling you, I don't have it figured out. I don't know all the answers, but I do know that I can take one more step.
I love that. I love that, because it really, what happens when you're so vulnerable like that is you automatically give permission for other people to be vulnerable. Yes. And you give them the power to find that voice within themselves as well, right? When you're saying, hey, I need your help. I need your help. Like that gives the other person like the power to say, okay, let me come and help you. Let me do that. And then together you start climbing together, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's not as difficult anymore because we have each other, right? I think, going back a little bit more spiritual, scriptural, one of the biggest things we talk about is like, we bear each other's burdens that they may be light, right? And I think it's interesting because I think in this sense, light could be a couple different things. It could be like, oh, it's not as heavy, but it's also light because the act of bearing each other's burdens actually fills us with more light in and of itself. You know what I mean?
We create that light. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's so many different analogies from this book that I really feel can apply to all of life. So Curtis, I really appreciate you coming on this podcast and sharing these thoughts. Like it's been so fun, honestly.
Thank you so much. I feel like we've got like 3-4 more hours of conversation.
Literally, it's like, this is amazing. One of the things I love about this is like every time I come and do a podcast, I feel like I just went through therapy. So I appreciate you like opening up and being vulnerable. It's been awesome. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Any last words before we wrap up?
Oh, thanks. This has been an amazing experience. I love the podcast.
It's been fun. Thank you so much. Awesome. Well, we're excited. And the Entrepreneur's Paradox, guys, please check that out. And thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to the Lemonade Stand podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you use to be alerted when we release new episodes. We'd also love to hear your feedback in the reviews, and if you or someone you know has an awesome Lemonade Stand story, please reach out to us on social media and let us know. Thanks so much and have a great day.